Somewhere on the south tip of Texas, a 403-foot metallic giant trembles with fire and anticipation, its engines roaring to life as a countdown echoes across the salt flats. The world holds its breath, not because failure is impossible, but because it's almost guaranteed. Starship, Elon Musk's most ambitious gamble yet, ascends violently, chased by a cloud of questions. Why do these rockets keep exploding? And why, with every failure, does SpaceX only move faster? In the last decade, no project has electrified and polarized the global tech and finance community like Starship. Its mission isn't just to reach space, or even the moon. It's to make space travel ordinary, frequent, and cheap, something the industry has fantasized about since the Apollo era. But the road to Mars is littered with scorched metal and shattered dreams. Tonight, we're diving into the volatile world of Starship, the money, the machines, and the mounting pressure from regulators, investors, and NASA itself. Let's rewind to the very beginning. In 2012, when Elon Musk announced his intention to build a fully reusable rocket bigger than anything before, even seasoned aerospace engineers rolled their eyes. Rockets, after all, are designed to be expendable. The very idea of launching, landing, refueling, and relaunching a 400-foot booster sounded less like engineering and more like science fiction. But SpaceX thrives on skepticism. The company started with small tests, Starhopper, a squat prototype that looked like a water tower with delusions of grandeur. Its first hops barely cleared the ground, but each one was a crucial lesson. By 2019, SpaceX had begun assembling the first full-size Starship prototypes at Starbase, a new launch site in Boca Chica, Texas. From the outset, Starship's entire development philosophy flew in the face of aerospace orthodoxy. Traditional contractors like Boeing and Lockheed, locked in cycles of interminable design reviews and risk aversion, rarely risk full-scale failure. SpaceX, by contrast, builds, launches, and learns from mistakes in rapid succession. Test, explode, fix, repeat. It's a rhythm that terrifies investors yet intrigues technologists worldwide. The stakes? Massive. Starship isn't designed just to carry billionaires into orbit, but to supply NASA's Artemis program with lunar landers, launch huge satellites, and eventually ferry hundreds of humans and tons of cargo to Mars. The endgame is nothing less than turning humanity into a multiplanetary species. If SpaceX pulls this off, it will rewrite the economics of space and possibly human civilization itself. But the learning curve has been brutal. Of the 9 major Starship test flights so far, none have completed their full list of objectives. On the most recent attempt, SpaceX hoped to deploy experimental satellites and stress test the ship's new heat shield tiles during re-entry. Instead, the door jammed, the spacecraft lost orientation, and then, as commentators at Mission Control understated, "We have essentially lost attitude control of the ship at this point." Within minutes, the rocket spun out of control over the Indian Ocean, ending with what SpaceX calls a rapid unscheduled disassembly, known to the rest of us as a catastrophic breakup. Debris scattered across the sky and sea. Yet almost immediately, Elon Musk tweeted, "Big improvement." A sense of dark humor maybe, but also a window into how SpaceX frames progress. Make no mistake, each launch costs tens, sometimes hundreds, of millions of dollars. Investors, including some of the world's biggest hedge funds and sovereign wealth vehicles, watch each mission with white knuckles. NASA, whose own Artemis lunar program now hinges on a functioning Starship for crewed moon landings, is getting nervous. Deadlines slide. Artemis II is delayed to at least 2026, and the lunar landing, Artemis III, won't happen before 2027. Yet in stark contrast to the setbacks, the pace at SpaceX is only accelerating. Elon Musk has promised Starship launches every 3 to 4 weeks. In a world where most rockets take years to build and fly, this is a blistering tempo. How is this possible? The answer lies in SpaceX's now famous philosophy: fail fast, learn faster. Let's zoom in on what makes Starship so radically different from anything that came before. First, scale. At 403 feet, it's the tallest rocket ever built, capable of lifting over 100 metric tons to low Earth orbit. That's twice the capacity of the legendary Saturn V. Starship is a 2-stage vehicle, a gigantic booster called Super Heavy, and the Starship spacecraft itself. Both are fully reusable, at least that's the vision. Reusable rockets aren't new, but nothing at this scale has ever been attempted. SpaceX's previous workhorse, the Falcon 9, lands its boosters vertically, a feat once dismissed as impossible. But Starship multiplies the complexity. The booster is meant to return to the pad and be caught mid-air by colossal robotic chopsticks, while the upper stage not only goes to orbit but is designed to survive the searing heat of re-entry and land safely, ready to fly again. But reusability is just the start. For Mars missions, Starship must refuel in orbit, transferring vast quantities of liquid oxygen and methane from one ship to another, a maneuver never before attempted in space. The heat shield must survive entry at interplanetary speeds. The cabin systems need to sustain crews for months at a time. Each new test brings fresh challenges, and more often than not, fresh failures. Yet with every blown-up booster and lost capsule, SpaceX iterates. Elon Musk himself is quick to point out that the latest flight lasted longer and achieved more than the previous two, which disintegrated over the Atlantic just minutes after launch. It was a big improvement since Starship's last flight, he posted. SpaceX's engineers, used to cleaning up after fiery tests, see it the same way. Every piece of wreckage is a data point. This approach has allies and critics. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson is betting on Starship, noting, "Continued Starship testing will prepare the nation for landing astronauts at the moon's south pole." But rivals in the old guard grumble about SpaceX's breakneck pace and seemingly cavalier attitude toward risk. The FAA, keen to avoid a tragedy, has tightened oversight, expanding the hazard zone for Starship flights to more than 1,600 nautical miles. Airline routes have been rerouted, local communities have organized for more say, and the aftermath of each launch is watched under an ever-thickening web of regulations. And then there's the looming question: can this approach of relentless iteration actually scale? SpaceX plans to build Starship rockets, like airliners, with a new gigabay under construction in Florida. If successful, this facility could spit out Starships at an unprecedented rate. The goal? Regular flights, maybe weekly, possibly daily. The implications for space access, global internet, satellite swarms, and off-world colonies are staggering. But every speed advantage comes at a price. The latest Starship was the first to fly with a reused booster, a major milestone for reusability. But it crashed into the Gulf of Mexico in pieces. The payload door, meant to demonstrate satellite delivery, malfunctioned. The ship spun out, possibly due to a critical fuel leak. As SpaceX commentator Dan Hewitt summed up during the webcast, "Not looking great with a lot of our on-orbit objectives for today." These recurring problems point to a deeper challenge. Starship isn't simply a bigger rocket, it's an ecosystem. Everything from the heat shield's ceramic tiles to its autonomous flight control software is in constant flux. And the pressure is mounting. NASA's lunar schedule, environmental regulators in Florida, and skeptical investors all want proof that the dream isn't just hype. Each successive test flight must get further, achieve more, and avoid catastrophic failure both for optics and for regulatory approval. But perhaps the greatest tension lies in the gap between SpaceX's ambitions and Earth's reality. Even as the company promises faster, cheaper, more frequent launches, its environmental footprint is growing. Locals in Texas and Florida worry about noise, habitat destruction, and pollution. The U.S. Air Force is running impact reviews. The FAA, after a particularly dramatic debris field scattered over the Atlantic, forced SpaceX to expand safety zones and reschedule launches to avoid peak air traffic. Rivals aren't standing still. In China, state-backed programs are racing to develop heavy-lift reusable launchers. In the U.S., Blue Origin and United Launch Alliance are pouring billions into challengers that could steal SpaceX's thunder. If Starship stumbles too many more times, the door is wide open for an upset in the emerging space economy. The next 12 months are pivotal. SpaceX says it will fly Starship every 3 to 4 weeks. NASA needs concrete progress for its moon ambitions. The new Florida Gigabay is rising fast, promising industrial-scale rocket output. But with every launch, the specter of failure and the cost of yet another rapid, unscheduled disassembly grows larger. So, will this ambitious experiment in build-fast, break-things engineering actually deliver the future Musk has promised? Or is SpaceX on a collision course with technical limits, regulatory headwinds, and the cold calculus of market forces? In the second half of our deep dive, we'll explore the make-or-break moments just ahead. We'll ask, can Starship's failures truly pave the way to Mars, or is the price of speed too high for the world to tolerate? Stay tuned to see why the next few flights may decide not just the fate of SpaceX, but the future of our species in space. But as we look to the future, the stage is set for one of the most consequential chapters in the history of space exploration. Starship has already pushed boundaries and shattered expectations. but it's what comes next that could truly reshape our world, for better or worse. Let's imagine two starkly different futures. In one, SpaceX cracks the code. Starship, after dozens of fiery test flights, begins launching reliably, ferrying satellites, lunar landers, and eventually human crews with a frequency and cost efficiency never before seen. This is SpaceX's moonshot, a fully reusable rocket that makes the dream of affordable space access a reality. Costs could plunge tenfold or more. Science, commerce, and even tourism could take to orbit not just as a privilege for the few, but as an everyday part of human life. Imagine research stations on the moon, giant telescopes assembled in space, or internet for remote villages provided by vast constellations of satellites. It's not just science fiction anymore. This is the scenario many in the industry are desperately hoping for. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson put it bluntly, "Continued Starship testing will prepare the nation for landing astronauts at the moon's south pole. If SpaceX succeeds, it single-handedly accelerates NASA's Artemis program and could finally put humans back on the lunar surface this decade. A proven Starship opens the door for Mars missions, no longer a distant fantasy, but a logistical challenge within reach." But in the other future, things spiral. Imagine a string of high-profile failures, more explosions, more hardware lost at sea, more regulatory red tape and environmental pushback from local communities and watchdogs. As the timeline for Artemis slips further, NASA and its partners might hesitate. Political and financial pressure could mount. The aggressive pace that once inspired awe might come to be seen as recklessness. Investors might panic. Competitors would circle, eager for a share of the market. SpaceX's reputation, built on spectacular successes, could take a hit, forcing the company and perhaps the entire industry to rethink how much risk is too much. We're truly at a crossroads, and the sheer scale of what's at stake can't be overstated. Not just for SpaceX, not just for NASA, but for the entire future of humanity's relationship with space. So what can we realistically expect? Based on industry trends, expert analysis, and the undeniable drive of SpaceX's engineering culture, the smart money is on a rocky but ultimately successful path. Iteration, after all, is woven into the DNA of SpaceX. Elon Musk's philosophy, test hard, fail fast, learn even faster, has already transformed rocketry once with Falcon 9. Starship is just a much bigger gamble. But the journey will be turbulent. Regulatory scrutiny is intensifying. The FAA, for instance, has expanded Starship's hazard area after debris was scattered miles from a failed launch, and environmental reviews for the Florida expansion are rigorous. SpaceX has to prove, not just to NASA but to the public, that rapid growth and safety can coexist. As one aviation analyst quipped, "The only thing faster than SpaceX's rockets is the controversy they ignite." There are also formidable technical challenges left to crack. In-space propellant transfer, reliable heat shield performance, long-term component durability, and autonomous flight control systems that can manage the most complex maneuvers. As we saw in the latest test, a fuel leak can still send a $2 billion rocket tumbling out of control in seconds. The margin for error is razor thin. Environmental impact is another wild card. The expansion to Florida's Launch Complex 37 could double or triple Starship's launch rate, but only if SpaceX can address local concerns over noise, emissions, and habitat disruption. In an era of climate consciousness, no company, not even SpaceX, can afford to ignore sustainability. The company's lead engineer recently stated, "If we want humanity to be multiplanetary, we have to get launches right, not just technically, but ethically." Meanwhile, the competition isn't standing still. China has announced plans for its own super heavy rockets and lunar bases. Blue Origin, Boeing, and international coalitions are investing heavily in next-generation spacecraft, each hoping to seize the next big leap. We may be witnessing the beginning of a true space race, one that could either spark a new era of discovery or spiral into geopolitical rivalry. But what does this mean for us, right here on Earth? Why should anyone who isn't a billionaire or an astronaut care about the fate of Starship? The practical impacts of SpaceX's moonshot ambition extend far beyond rockets and Mars colonies. If Starship works, even at a fraction of its promised scale, it could transform industries that barely touched space before. Think about global internet access. Already, Starlink satellites are connecting rural villages, ships at sea, and scientific outposts at the ends of the Earth. Cheaper, more frequent launches could turn this into a truly planetary network, ending digital isolation in one generation. Next, Consider disaster relief. Mega constellations of satellites, deployed quickly and cheaply, could provide real-time imagery to responders after hurricanes, earthquakes, or wildfires, saving countless lives. Humanitarian missions, environmental monitoring, and even weather prediction could be revolutionized. There's also economic opportunity. The global space economy is projected to hit $1 trillion by 2040. Cheap launches mean small businesses, universities, and even hobbyists could put experiments and inventions into orbit. The democratization of space could unleash an era of creativity and entrepreneurship that rivals the early days of the internet. And finally, there's something deeply philosophical here. The very public, very messy progress of Starship is a lesson in perseverance and in embracing failure as fuel for growth. We're watching, in real time, the collision of vision and reality, risk and reward. As Elon Musk once said, "When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor." That's a mindset any one of us can adopt, not just in science, but in daily life. Take bold swings, learn quickly, and never be afraid to iterate. So as spectators to this unfolding drama, what can we actually do? First, stay informed. The pace of innovation in space is unlike anything we've seen before. Following developments in Starship, Artemis, and rival programs isn't just for space geeks. These are stories that will define this century. As taxpayers, voters, and someday perhaps travelers, our voices matter in shaping policy and ensuring these leaps are taken wisely. Second, support STEM education and curiosity-driven research in your communities. The next generation of rocket scientists, and the people who will manage the ethical, legal, and environmental challenges of space, are sitting in classrooms right now. They need inspiration, funding, and role models. Third, ask hard questions. As we cheer the spectacular launches, we must also demand accountability on safety, environmental impact, and who gets access to the benefits of space. It's up to all of us to insist that the rush to the stars doesn't trample what's precious on Earth. And finally, don't underestimate the power of optimism. Every time Starship roars off the pad, it's not just a test of metal and fuel, but of the human spirit. Our willingness to chase the impossible, to risk, to fail forward, these are the qualities that have always pushed civilization to its next horizon. So, back to the burning question. Will Starship's relentless pace and repeated failures make or break humanity's ambitions in space? The answer is that failure and success are two sides of the same rocket. History shows that every breakthrough, every leap to a new world, was built on setbacks that taught us more than perfect outcomes ever could. SpaceX's gamble, in all its chaos and spectacle, is paying off in knowledge. Each failed flight is data. Each explosion, a lesson for the next attempt. If SpaceX continues learning faster than it fails, then yes, Starship could be the vehicle that finally brings us to the moon, Mars, and beyond. If, however, the tempo outpaces safety or public trust, we may see caution and regulation slow the march, for good reason. Either way, the future will be shaped not by perfection, but by resilience and the courage to persist. And here's the secret few realize. The pace of Starship's development isn't just about rockets. It's a proof of concept for a philosophy, one that says speed, transparency, and learning in public can drive progress faster than any committee room ever could. That's why every launch matters, even the fiery ones. So, as you watch the next countdown, remember you are witnessing history. The next chapter may be written by SpaceX, or by the rivals eager to overtake it. Will we look back at these years as the birth of humanity's true space age, or as the cautionary tale that grounded our reach? That, ultimately, is up to all of us. If you're inspired by this story, share this video, subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest questions of our time, and let us know in the